If you're new here, my name is Trinity Holmes, paranormal investigator. I started this work after my cousin Julia vanished from a college dorm under impossible circumstances. Since then, I've been documenting the places, objects, and people that slip through the cracks of our world. This podcast usually follows full cases, mysteries I investigate over days or weeks, but sometimes I share shorter, more intense episodes. I call them extras. They're fragments, field notes, and letters from people who've stumbled onto something strange. Think of them as a map of the shadows between my main case files. Today's extra comes from a volunteer archivist in New Orleans who discovered an unsettling artifact in the attic of a shuttered asylum. It's about a rag doll stitched by a patient who believed she could trap her nightmares in thread. What she left behind may be more than just fabric. Whether you've been here from the beginning or you're just tuning in now, consider this your invitation into the hidden corners of the Trinity Holmes files. This is The Rag Doll from Saint Hester Asylum. I received this letter a month ago. It was handwritten in violet ink, folded around a Polaroid of a small cloth doll. No return address. Dear Trinity, I'm a volunteer archivist for Saint Hester's Asylum renovation project. The building shut down in 1964, abandoned and sealed. We're cataloging everything left behind. Last week, in a locked attic above the old East Wing, I found a trunk filled with rags and patient belongings. At the bottom was a cloth doll, 12 inches high, button eyes, crooked mouth, yarn hair. Someone had stitched phrases all over the body. Tiny black letters, uneven but deliberate. When I first touched it, the temperature dropped. I smelled something like chalk and violets. That night, I had a nightmare about a woman humming in a dark corridor. I've been cataloging artifacts for years, and nothing's ever followed me home. But since I found this doll, my sleep has been strange. I wake up with thread marks across my palms. I swear I hear the attic door creak, even though I'm miles away. The tag on the doll's wrist reads, "Property of L. Mercer." What is this thing? Unnerved in New Orleans. My response. Saint Hester Asylum was a real place, built in 1891 on the outskirts of New Orleans, designed as a progressive mental institution, but infamous for overcrowding and experimental therapies. By the 1950s, it had a locked attic over the East Wing where they stored patient artwork, personal effects, and anything deemed non-essential. When the asylum closed, staff hurried to move patients, but left entire trunks behind. Officially, most of the contents were burned. Unofficially, objects leak out at estate sales and auctions. Over the years, I've tracked more than a dozen artifacts from Saint Hester. Everything from embroidered straitjackets to carved wooden protective charms. But the rag doll you describe? That's new. The patient who made it. The name on the wrist tag, L. Mercer, matches a patient named Lydia Mercer, admitted in 1927. Lydia was a textile worker before her breakdown, reportedly obsessed with stitching out her nightmares. The staff notes mentioned she believed threads could bind thoughts, that sewing could trap or silence unwanted visions. Other patients recall Lydia wandering the halls with a pincushion strapped to her wrist, muttering patterns under her breath. She refused paper and pencil, claiming words on paper escaped too easily, but would embroider whole sentences into scraps of cloth. One nurse wrote, "She stitches as if her hands are trying to erase her mind." Why the doll is dangerous. When Lydia was confined to the attic after an incident with a fellow patient, she began stitching what she called sleep dolls. She claimed each doll could hold a nightmare if properly sewn. The doll you found matches her description of the final piece, a cloth body large enough to contain the whole dream. What makes objects like this dangerous isn't simple haunting. It's concentration. Every fear, panic, and fragment of Lydia's life could be embedded in those stitches, like emotional static locked into fabric. Handling it may trigger bleed through, nightmares, tactile sensations, echo memories. The thread marks on your palms, classic sympathetic imprinting. You're essentially experiencing phantom stitches, your body mimicking the making of the doll. How to handle it safely. Wrap it in natural cloth, linen or cotton, without printed patterns. This neutralizes resonance. Don't read the stitch phrases aloud. Lydia's patterns were part confession, part ritual. Speaking them can activate associations you don't want. If cataloging continues, treat the doll as a contaminated artifact. Gloves, sealed box, limited exposure time. Ideally, it should be housed separately from other items. If you want to neutralize its influence completely, you can do one of three things. Return it to the attic where it was found, but risk reactivating the space. 2. Submerge it in salt water for 7 days. Folk method sometimes works. 3. Encase it in leaded glass and store it off-site. Museum conservation method. Whatever you choose, document everything. Objects like this are living history. Their danger is also their authenticity. I've worked with artifacts like this before. Once I handled a hand-stitched quilt from a different institution. Within hours, I was dreaming in someone else's handwriting. I woke with my hands making tiny pinching motions in the dark. Objects from places of deep suffering don't just carry dust, they carry pattern. Pattern invites repetition. Repetition invites re-entry. The doll may simply be Lydia's echo, or it may be acting as a lure, offering her a way to finish the dream through whoever touches it. Either way, you're not imagining this. This was the letter about the rag doll from the Saint Hester Asylum. I chose this one because it shows how objects can outlive their owners and keep doing the work they were built to do. Lydia Mercer thought she was sewing her nightmares away. In reality, she was storing them, one stitch at a time, until someone like you came along and picked them up again. If you're listening and you work with archives, museums, or old estates, remember, gloves aren't just for preservation, they're for protection. Handle with care, document everything, and when your instincts tell you an object is wrong, trust them. Next time, another extra, another fragment. Until then, check the attic twice, never read the stitches aloud, and remember that even fabric can hold a memory waiting to unfold.